Yo, what's up guys? Back with another Etheria video, talking about a one team clearing almost all dungeons. So we're talking about all of the thresholds. Well, Dokyoki is the one that you don't really do, but also a lot of the shell dungeons. There's one shell dungeon you can also not do with this one, and it is just really strong and actually one of the more underrated units, I would say. And that is going to be the Shadow Sania. And in this case, I do use a Heinrich. You can use a Viper for this one because you have to strip the first immunity. I would not really recommend to use a Viper, but that is your next best option that would do it on auto. It's too bad that the turn dot cannot have like a selection of what would you like to use it on auto, because her iteration would be really nice if she can start off with a Dispel on the skill 1 and then you go for the rest of the stuff in her kit, which would be really nice. I hope that they do add it into this game. But in this case, this would be the team and this would be the option. I'll showcase the gear in just a second. But the idea is super simple. You just have a bunch of daughters. Also, we have Obol in here, which is the wrong element. But since Marvel is there, which is also part of this team, which is making it super safe, it's definitely not that much of an issue. Also, if this boss starts getting a few turns and he starts killing the Obol, it's pretty much not even an issue right there. We also have Marvel that's being fast enough to start lapping. So we get 2 rotations of all of those skills. I had a few comments saying on how Sania does use her skill, but actually they weren't fully correct, because Sania will always go for her S3 if she already did do the S2. She will focus on S2 first. So in this case, this is where you see is like, oh, the run goes bad. Like, no, it's actually not an issue. Take a few turns, you die. Like, it's actually really hilarious on Terramaton. So you don't even care about her final skill. And her final skill is the one that actually does explode all of those buffs normally. So, or all of those debuffs, all of those DOTs, dots over time, damage over time. Dots over time, that's DOT over DOT, right? No, does that work? That doesn't work. But let me showcase you in the other dungeons as well. So first of all, her kit, I did go for a Codex of Magic. If you don't go for a Codex of Magic, she will actually go for a skill 2 into a skill 3 right away. If that is your preferred state, that is definitely something you could work with. But the thing is, she will always go for an S2 if there is something to prolong. Some people were saying like, oh, if she knows she can kill, she will use an S3. She doesn't actually do that. She will always use S2. She continues using S2 as long as she has the cooldown on S2. So if you want to just go for a rotation of an S2 into S3, you don't go for Codex of Magic. If you want an S2, S2, S3, then you get the Codex of Magic in. I think in most cases, it is safest way to actually go for the Codex of Magic, because in that case, you can go for that double S2 before you go for the kill. And if the boss starts taking a few turns, he just dies from it itself. So we have that for prolonging the debuffs. Then we, of course, have our 2 core debuffers. There's no third real good debuffer. I think there's not even another debuffer in-game for the dots. If with a future patch they add in more debuffers, it would be even stronger, because currently you kind of have a slot in the Marvel, or if you don't need to strip in a certain dungeon, even in the Heinrich, where you can just add in another dollar, and the moment you have more dollars in the team, it's just stronger. So we have this skill 3 over here. Also has a little bit more chance of dotting. I actually didn't fully test it, that if you maybe go for an insane amount of accuracy, you also up this activation rate of the 75% chance to land the stack. So I think that Obol is actually worth it to put on as high accuracy as possible. As I showed in the previous video, the activation rate does go up. So this one actually does have 100% activation rate. Does this one as well? No, this one actually has a 35. So this one already has an insane amount of accuracy. So for this team, I would actually recommend to go as high accuracy as possible. I think for her, it's a little bit less interesting, because this is not necessarily like it's 100% activation. That's 100% activation. This could be a little bit higher, but that is pretty much, yeah, no, this is already 100% activation as well. So yeah, for her, maybe not as interesting. I did think about a few other things that maybe you were to add like anything that counters or anything that goes for like a team up kind of attack. Those are options you could go for to maybe make this even more interesting. But the core team is pretty much just the Marvel, the Sania, the Obol, and then also the thing on the right. Fungus, whatever his name is. I call him Fungus. He looks like a fungus. I don't know. So yeah, that's just the team that you go for. And in most cases, sure, it is a little bit RNG how many debuffs you do get, because sometimes you have a lot of team-ups from this guy, sometimes not as much. Also, of course, there's a Codex of Magic on the Marvel just to make this team a little bit safer. You do see I take a good amount of damage myself, but in most cases, this is not really an issue. And this is still, keep in mind, still an Inferno stage, which is pretty insane. So let's see how far we do get over here. I think that's where the boss starts lapping. Gives a little bit of extra damage. Doesn't really matter all too much. We get that hit in. Just make sure that mainly your Sania is tanky enough. And then we go for skill 3 and insta-kill the boss. It's as simple as that. And I think that this unit is very underrated because a lot of people that have been pulling her were like, yeah, she's like the worst of like the LD units. She's the worst of like the, what's it called, of the Apex SSRs. Well, to be honest, if you pull her, you don't really have to focus on that much on damage on a Victor or the Thing or something like that. Sure, you might want to be using those in other stages, such as the Anisync Echo. I think in Anisync Echo you cannot use dots, but in the Amber track you can use dots, if I'm not mistaken. Don't let me know in the comments if you do know. I could test that right now, but I actually don't really feel like it. So let me know in the comments. Probably someone that also already know. Nana Nico is arguably the easiest stage for this team because this is definitely one of those stages where you could say it's like, hey, if I'm hard farming this, I would remove the Kodak of Magic. Because in that case, the Sania would have killed from that position already for a long shot. Like the 100%. The Sania on the previous turn could have went for skill 3 and guaranteed kill that. But as you can see, 36 seconds on an Inferno is still definitely not bad at all. Then we have one stage which you guarantee can't do, which is the Sharon. And I'm not entirely sure where it is at, but I'm pretty sure you cannot dot this one itself. Like it's probably some kind of passive where you cannot dot it. At least I'm pretty sure it doesn't. And we can, of course, showcase that as well, because in this, over here, stamina doesn't really matter. I got plenty. So as you can see, you're not really landing any dots. And if you can't land any dots, well, then you're not going to be killing anything anytime soon. That's just the main thing. Like, there's nothing to extend. Like, yeah, that's just the issue. You ain't going to be clearing this one on an Inferno if you cannot land any of your dots. So you do have to be able to land your dots. But of course, we can do the Shadow Hoyan. I think that this is also a best in slot team for the Shadow Hoyan, actually, because the Shadow Hoyan has a fair amount of defense where it's just hard to break through and nuke it all together. Sure, you do get a few counter hits in and those kind of things, but in the end, if you just extend all of that good stuff, it's definitely not an issue whatsoever. So yeah, we do get a good amount of damage in here, good amount of damage. I think that's, maybe that wouldn't have been enough for an S3 to already kill. Let's see what we do over here. Goes for a little bit of damage, yep. And then we go for the big boom, and everything is dead once again. Makes it look so freaking easy, 33 seconds. So once again, if I were to pull her, like sure, I'm not going to be aiming for her, sure, I'm not going to be re-rolling for her. But if I will pull her, I would absolutely bolt her. This just feels so super strong. And also this stage, which is once again a stage, could be a little bit annoying without, maybe you don't have enough damage to nuke it. And in this case, that's also the perfect thing on this. You don't really need insane gear requirements. You just need a Codec of Magic on everything. You need enough accuracy, and you need enough speed. And you need to be a little bit tanky. With the other ones, you have to get the max crit rate, you have to deal enough damage, you have to be fast enough, you have to be not too squishy, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And over here, it's just smooth sailing. Like, we just do whatever. We just need 4 Codexes of Magic. But the thing is, she can actually farm a Code of Magic very well on this stage. So 31 seconds, once again, insanely fast team. Then, of course, we did already show that Sharon is one of those where you can't use it. You can also not really use it in Dokyoki. I did try to climb Dokyoki with using just this team because I didn't really clear Dokyoki as of yet. But if we check Inferno, we can already see there's not a single Dokyoki team where you do actually have a dot team in there. And if you were to go for it, it's a little bit awkward with the double wave. So you can't really save off saying like, okay, we do one rotation for all skills and then kill or something. It's not really happening. Like, there's a lot of back and forth. I just added a Lily. Maybe you can add a Dokyoki itself in this or something like that. Also, you're working with the wrong element on one. You do get the stunts in with the oboe itself, which does help out a little bit. But in this case, you can add in like a Kraken on the side of the Lily or whatever, whatnot. There's definitely a few options out there. But it just gets a little bit awkward in the sense of like, okay, when is Sania going to be using her S3? Because now we're extending everything that would definitely already die while we're in Nightmare 2. But keep in mind, let's say that everything would be at full HP right now. Totally fine. But the big issue is you start wasting a lot of your skills already before the next wave. So let's say everything died here on the AoE because that's how much damage you would have done normally. Then you start off the following wave with pretty much no skills. Because of the Lily, you do have the rotation back to at least get your pushback on the Marvel. But in this case, no cooldowns on the Obol, no cooldowns on the Sania, and no cooldowns even on this one, no cooldowns over here. Then we start finally getting some cooldowns in, but if this was an Inferno stage, we would have been nearly dead already. So definitely I could get decently far in this. Definitely there could be a team which you could kind of run with this, but I think that this is the only exception where I would say it's like probably not the best take to run a daughter team. Maybe with the Dokyoki. I'm thinking that a Dokyoki moving all the way at the end might actually be somewhat of a way for doing this, but I'm gonna be trying that out. So I will just fast forward where I do get all of these nightmares and hell stages done, and then just put a Dokyoki on the Lily spot, and let's just see if it works. Why not? So this was the Health 4 stage. By all means, not a fast run, but I did fit in a Dokyoki at a specific turn order, which might actually work where it does also work for the Inferno. So if you already have this team geared, sure, you might want to have a faster team on this, but if it works, it just works, right? Which is actually kind of insane. So what is the idea? The Dokyoki moves right after the two main daughters, but just before the Sania. So what does that mean for the turn rotation? You're actually going to be doing a lot of skills back and forth to kill this first wave. But right after the first wave, you will get a very good rotation in as well. So it did work out very well prior to this. So let's see if it also does work out very well on this one. So this is where Sania still goes for an S2 right now. And with that S2, I'm pretty sure that this should be enough dots to kill everything all the time. We still have some more rotations, but these rotations actually do help you to get your cooldowns back. And none of these actually do use any useful skills right now. Oh, wait, this time around, that's too bad. Like, every time before, I think that was maybe because some of the monsters took a turn. Because every time I was doing that in the Hell stage, we didn't have Obo moving in front of the Sania. Maybe if I make the Dokyoki move right after, because every time in all of the Hell stage that I did, we had Obo starting off with a skill 3 right when the new wave started, because Obo moved right after the Sania. So maybe if I make the Dokyoki also move after the Sania, maybe that would get a better rotation right there to actually make it work. It is actually kind of funny because of this backup, all of those stuns that all of these characters do land is not really an issue. But if they start taking their turn and they're not stunned by the Obol, yeah, then it's definitely like a little bit of a back and forth. Like, do you survive long enough? Of course, that dude is the wrong element, so he tends to die really badly. So let's just see if this is still able to get a clear on this one. Does get that skill 3 off right now, but that's also still a little bit of a bad timing. We do have to get the Obol skill off. That's the main thing. As long as we get the Obol skill off, it is still something that we can work around with. But okay, we do get it off. But in this case, we don't take enough fast turns, I think, to also start going for S2. Okay, we do get for S2. Otherwise, there's no real like proper extending of the debuff. So it does kind of work. I will check how it works if I put Dokyoki in the very last slot rather than in the 4th position of the turn order. Because right now, it does seem to still work. So in the end, it is possible to make this team work. Do you really need a Dokyoki for this? I'm not sure. There's probably other ways where you can make the turn rotation where it does work in the end. But to be honest, if this team would work for pretty much every dungeon, I would just run this team. And like, that's the chill thing. You don't have to focus anything specific on any of the other dungeons. Plus, you can also gear up all of your other units very specific how you would like to do them for RTA, rather than having just teams geared up to do your PV stage. So let me check if I make Dokyoki in the final slot. But a 150 over here, 145. Yeah, that should be good enough. So let's actually see how this rotation would work if the Dokyoki moves all the way at the end of the rotation. Because in the end, we do like to get 2 rotations of everything in there. And then be close to getting the 3rd rotation, but just not yet. That is the main thing that you're aiming for with this. So we have the Dokyoki moving all the way left right now. Yep, getting all of them dots in, all of them stuns in, them skill 2 in. And then we go for another round of those. Let's see how she also pushes up right now. I'm not sure. Would she give the cooldown to your S2 at that position? I don't think so. But She doesn't pushes up you right now, which might not really be the right thing to do, but let's just see. Because it's kind of like Dokyoki is kind of like all over the place where she does go for the speed ups and stuff. So we do have pretty long cooldown on you right now, and then we go into this skill 3, which is probably not that great because I don't think Marvel has his skill back just yet. Let's see, Marvel does have skill, okay. And then we actually do have this. Okay, that's perfect rotation. That's actually way better. That's a really good rotation. Let's actually target this because that's what you would normally do if you were to auto this. Did your codex also reset? No, not that OP. But still pretty OP. I think you have your S3 right now. It's a little bit too early to let those explode. But I guess it's kind of fine. I think that this is where it gets a little bit more wonky. They started killing a few things. And this is where you hope your Obel doesn't die or your Sania doesn't die. Maybe, mainly actually Obel doesn't die. That thing will definitely die. Like, that's a guarantee that it would die. Actually, the previous rotation in the end was working better. But it's a little bit of a wonky run. It is possible, but maybe if they release any other unit that would give a little bit more value to AoE dots or something, then I would go for it right now. It is an option, but is it the best of options out there? Not really, though. Do we get a rotation off? No, we get another skill 3 off before we get another Obel skill off, which isn't that great. It's good that you do have to back up every time that something is stunned, that you instantly remove the stun with the Dokyoki. It's possible without the Dokyoki. I'm not sure. I wouldn't really do this with a Lily or any other kind of unit, though. Maybe if it does get you the perfect rotation, you could give that a try. But right now, I would say it does work. I think if you let it auto, it would work for a while. 2 minutes 17 for something where you don't really invest that much good gear quality into all of those things is actually not that bad. And let me show you how it's geared, because in the end, sure, everything is on like a proper set, but also you can see over here, I didn't even go for the extra set that you can get with like a momentum or whatever. And I didn't do that with any of those. I just threw like whatever at it. And also if you check these, like, I didn't go for proper speeds. I didn't go for proper substats. Like, none of these are actually, like, proper goods rolled. Whereas the team that I was showcasing with, like, Victor, fast clears, and that kind of stuff, you actually need to get, like, the specific stuff, the specific good stuff. And in this case, all I needed was just Swift Rush and be tanky and get accuracy. That's all there is, what there is to do to it. So this team is actually pretty dope, and it clears about everything, except, of course, the Sharon, because the Sharon you can simply not dot. But if I were to pull her, I would definitely think about just skilling her up as well, because how much does she need for skill ups? Like, what does she actually get in the skill ups? Oh, we can check those in details, of course. Over here, cooldown by 2. Yep, you're definitely going to need that cooldown by 2. And then here, cooldown by 1. Yep. Over here, the duration for the turn passive. Is that interesting? Yeah, I think you need that as well. So you probably do need it fully skilled up. Yeah, you probably do need it fully skilled up to actually make her work. So that's a lot of perfect lattices. But then again, you have all of your dungeon teams fixed with just skilling her up, which is maybe worth it. I'm not 100% sure yet. It is a pretty heavy investment. I'm not too sure how good she would work if she were a little bit lower on the cooldowns for some of those skills, or maybe she didn't have this skill over here, because that's another 4 right there, and you were just to focus on maybe just getting this one in or this one. It would probably be something like that. It might be a little bit worse. I'm not sure. I can't really test that because I can't take those out. But then again, Shadow Sania is a pretty cool unit for being able to clear legitimately everything. But it's one of those units, if you pull her super early, you start building the team around there and you focus the resource into it. If you pull her super late and you already have your dungeon teams fixed, you're probably not really going to be using that, I guess. But let's see how that works out in the real release. Well, guys, thanks a lot for watching for this one. As you as always, in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.